This program is brought to you by Newsworks in cooperation with the City of Eau Claire. This program is simulcast on WRFP-LP 101.9 FM.
Okay, it looks like it's 7:30, so I think we'll call the meeting to order. First order of business this morning, I'd like to introduce Mr. Rick Kaiser, who will be joining the Redevelopment Authority right now. Welcome this moment. Thank you.
Do you want to tap the mic just or like the bottom of it to turn on? There.
Oh, there it is. Okay,
Yeah.
it's red, green. Got it.
Yeah, yeah. Right.
The old ones were just red,
I
right?
know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
tricky. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. All right. Well, let's just redo that again since now we have the mics on. I'd like to introduce Rick Kaiser, who will be joining us to the RDA as of this meeting.
Thank you, and I'm very happy to be joining an interesting and eclectic group of individuals.
Second order of business is the minutes from the meeting of December 18th of last year. Any discussion on the minutes? Okay, seeing none, I'd look for a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved. Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Item 3 is the financial statements.
This on? Nope. Yeah, works very well.
That's red, isn't it? That's
Yeah, who knows? I guess just introduce myself. My name is Jason Roloff. I'm a budget analyst here with the city, and I'm here to give the financial report for the month of January. Attached is the RDA budget and actuals report as of January 31st, 2020. This report presents year-to-date budgeted and actual expenditures in the operating budget and actual expenditures in the capital budget. Revenues and expenditures and other funding sources are reported once they are realized. As of January 31st, 2020, for fiscal year 2020, the RDA operating expenditures total $0. Expenditures such as utilities will be accrued back to January once the city receives invoices for those services. As of January 31st, there were no capital expenditures either. I'm here for any questions.
Any questions on the financial statement? Again, seeing none, look for a motion to approve. Moved, second?
second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Welcome. The fourth item is the election of officers. So we have some folks have left the group here and some new folks have joined. So we need to re-elect officers of the organization.
So at this point, we'll need to select someone to be chairperson, and then we would need to backfill vice chair, and then also potentially fill the secretary position. So I'd probably start out recommending see if there's any existing officers wish to continue service.
I'll be happy to continue service in whatever capacity is.
I guess I would recommend Dr. Kemp to be the chair moving forward.
Thanks, Kyle.
I'll second that recommendation if that's possible.
Make a motion to do that, I think would be appropriate.
I move to elect Dr. Kemp as our chair of the RDA.
I second the motion to elect Dr. Kemp as chairman of the RDA.
Do we need discussion on that motion, or is that just something that? Okay, I think we'll just go. Yeah, go ahead, Catherine.
Just a process question, because I love process. For selecting chairs, do we have to say, are there any other nominations 3 times, or is that only for council business?
Yeah, nominations, usually there's a 3-time call, but again, it's not magic, but that is a typical move. So it's been moved
if you
and
say my name
seconded.
3 times, I appear magically.
I know,
in
that's what I was
Centennial
gonna say,
Hall. We're at
it's-
the university, so we.
Yeah.
Could we
The other
ask-
technical rule is you don't need a second for it either, but so long as this small group can figure it out, I'm fine with it.
Okay. I guess then, just to be practical, I would look for nominations for the vice chair. Anybody who's willing to serve. I don't want to nominate anybody, but if, you know, if called upon, I will do so. So it's kind of like a, you know, yeah, exactly.
I would move Connie as the vice chair.
Okay, I'll be happy to second that. Okay, I guess we'll call for a vote on that. All in favor of Connie Peterson being the vice chair of the Redevelopment Authority?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, do we take a vote on the chair? Okay, all those in favor of Thomas Kemp being the chair of the Redevelopment Authority? So aye.
Aye.
Okay, both motions pass, and we'll move on to the
Well,
next
we
item.
need
We'll
a
need to-
secretary.
Yeah, we'll need
Oh,
to backfill
secretary?
secretary position.
Right, very good. Okay, nominations on the secretary position.
I would nominate Wayne Willie as secretary.
Okay, second, I'll be happy to second that. Any discussion on the nomination? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. I think that's the last of the officers, correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you, everybody. And thanks, Connie and Wayne, for being willing to serve in these positions of tremendous authority. Next item of discussion is Block 7 discussion. A few items here.
Yeah, go. So Block 7, just to update, the last time we discussed this project, we had 2 proposals in for that we did not move forward on either one. The biggest issue relating to Block 7 has been the cost of parking. The project that was more favorable of the 2 that was proposed had underground parking that entailed about a $4 million price tag, which exceeded the capacity of the TIF to fund. So staff has been discussing internally and looking at some ideas of what can we do to get a little more creative and try and figure out how we can develop Block 7 that makes the parking less expensive. A way to address that, but still trying to achieve the development goals that the RDA has with that property. So one of the concepts that was thrown out is highlighted up here. This is referred to as a wrap building or a Texas donut in other terms. Basically, it allows for centralized parking in the center of the property. Typically, it might be publicly owned or privately owned, and then development wraps around it. Oftentimes going taller than the parking structure. This is something that's been kicked around internally as a potential way to address some of the parking issues and still see development in there. That would still allow for some commercial space on Barstow, but see the site developed out. The upper left-hand corner is probably a really good model or a good artistic drawing of what a wrap project would look like. Another option would be what we're referencing or potentially looking to do at the transit center site, which is some type of parking at ground level and then residential or commercial development on the levels above, basically condoing out the space. We're not sure which is best suitable for that. There's a lot of things that come into play when you start looking at different types of structures on a block of that size. Is the building big enough to do the type of construction that you're requesting? So one of the things that we're requesting is for the board to discuss potentially reaching out to an outside consultant to talk a little bit about potential development concepts within just the Block 7 focus and see what that space is appropriate for, what types of construction, what alternatives are out there for incorporating some means of parking other than underground, which as we're finding is prohibitively expensive on that site, and try and move forward with some more directed development ideas when we reach back out to the development groups. So kind of want to open that up for discussion with the board.
So this would all be public parking, correct?
Well, potentially. I mean, that's one way it can be done. It could be public parking that's leased back, and then spaces that are required by the development can be leased back to the developer. It could be private parking. And it's simply a different design for private parking. You know, that could be determined in a number of different ways. We look to see which is the best fit for the city and for the development who, you know, whatever type of development they're looking to do. But that'd be an option.
So is it underground parking with the development just not cost efficient?
The
effective?
costs have been consistently coming in, and Mr. Wood could correct me if I'm wrong, in the $35,000 to $40,000 per stall range. And with the number, it's a large enough lot that with the density of buildings that we were looking at to accommodate the parking in there, it was a lot of underground parking at $40,000 a stall. So the price tag that the last development put forward on underground for 200 plus stalls was $4 million. And again, that well exceeds the capacity of the TIF to assist. And parking was what they needed help with to make the project move forward. So we're trying to see if there's some alternative options out there to do something different to try and move this forward.
Would the analysis that you're talking about give us a greater insight beyond what you can provide or the city staff can provide in terms of looking at it and saying, like in that upper left-hand corner, something of that sort, how much parking is there, how much building development around, and how much value can be added to it? I mean, does the addition of the parking there prohibit enough value add with the other commercial development?
I think that's part of the question we'd have them address. For one thing, we're not sure how much space within Block 7 would be required to do a vertical parking structure. It may be that it takes up too much space to do a wrap type of building, or maybe you can't wrap all 4 sides, maybe it's only wrapping 3 sides, but it takes someone outside of our area of expertise to be able to look at the site, look at the dimensions, do some modeling, and determine, you know, what's feasible and what's not.
Thank you, Dr. Kemp. Thank you for bringing this forward and also just for giving a nod to the transfer center and a couple questions for you. How do you see this timing potentially syncing up with underground parking at the transfer center? You know, if a recommendation came forward to do this, is there a potential cost savings to maybe bid both projects at once? The second question is, what is a timeline that you would be looking for if the RDA gave direction to hire a consultant, that you'd like to have the information back and then present it back to RDA for a decision?
First off, I don't think there would be an opportunity to tie the two together. The transit center site is not looking at underground parking. They are already looking at elevated parking above the transit facility. The current concept right now is the transit center development building, 1 deck of public parking to meet the transit center's needs, and then 2 decks of private parking elevated above that. You're talking about potentially 2 different contractors, so I'm not sure that there would be a way to sync those up. Timing probably would not match real well. In terms of the other one, as far as timing goes, I don't see this as being a really long process. I would think within probably maybe the April meeting, we might be able to address some options. You know, ideally, we'd have them point to, here's the type of concept that the site's best suited for, and maybe do some artistic renderings of what a development within that site could look like. We do have within the RDA budget up to $10,000 for professional services, so we do have some budgeted funding to do this type of consulting work. But it shouldn't be a real long process. We're not asking them to redevelop, a large area or come up with, full architectural design. We're just asking them to address the site and see, what fits and what doesn't, what's not suited.
Thank you very much for the clarification on the first part. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And the information for the second. I'll have some statements to make after we're done with questions.
Any other discussion on the presentation? Okay, seeing none, move on to the next item. I believe it's also yours, Aaron. Sorry, I'm having to scroll back and forth because all I have is an electronic copy of the agenda here.
I did think we want an official motion.
We do have a motion written
That
up.
was added yesterday.
Yeah.
My apologies. Could I receive copies of all the hard
Yeah.
copies of all the
Absolutely.
motions? Thank you.
I don't have anything.
So Aaron, you said that you do have the funds in the budget for the consultant?
Correct.
Okay.
Dr. Kemp,
Yeah,
as they're looking for that, may I make some comments?
absolutely, please do, Kathy.
Thank you. So we'll be receiving a motion, and I'd like to speak, well, now that you have it, let's go ahead and move it, and then I'll speak.
Sure.
I'll move that we hire,
Well, here's the motion. So I hereby move to hire consultants at a cost of up to $10,000 to create renderings of building wrap design options for Block 7.
yeah, so moved.
Okay. Moved and seconded?
Okay, thank you. I think this is prudent for the RDA to move forward for two reasons. One, just trusting the staff and their expertise. I appreciate that they're sharing that this is not necessarily their skill of expertise, and so I just want to honor that a flag is being waved, and I see it, and I think it's important for us to move forward. Second is the timing, I think, is excellent. As we know, our city manager, who's also our colleague here, is retiring in May sometime, and I think it's really important that we try to maximize his expertise in-house as long as possible, which will certainly include this information coming back from the consultant and him working with staff as this comes back to the RDA for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on the motion?
Just a question, it didn't address cost estimates and kind of talked about building renderings and so forth. Should we add some sort of, oh, in terms of the cost of the consultant, but in terms of the costs and, you know, estimates of what their renderings might entail in terms of
That we would look to
project?
do that all inclusive.
Okay.
We reached out to a few consultants to kind of get a range of what costs would be, and it would fall well within, all costs to do this concept would fall well within that parameter.
Go ahead. Yeah, it's just a okay.
So not only the cost of the consultants, but making sure our consultants review the estimated cost of the parking structure of different options and the potential increment value of the private build-out. So I think those are things, those are deliverables that we'll seek from the consultants.
I expected they'd be in there, but I just thought, make sure we'd ask.
Aaron and Steve, do you guys need that direction in this motion, or is this sufficient?
No, I think that's
Yeah.
sufficient.
Okay. Okay, any additional discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is update and discussion of the Liner site development with Monarch Ventures and the Children's Museum of Eau Claire. Aaron, I think that's yours.
So we have been actively negotiating. We had the MOU signed with Monarch Ventures, and we are moving forward very well with the development agreement negotiation process. We have a follow-up meeting with them in another couple of weeks to touch on some points, but that's moving very well. That went out in your packets is the current MOU that's been signed by the Children's Museum. We have been working with them diligently, Mr. Nick and I, to establish the terms that we have been looking at with guidance from the board at the last meeting. Not going to go through the whole document, but we're looking at starting out with our initial $10 square foot asking price for the land. There's still a formal lot split that will need to be identified. The Monarch Ventures and the Children's Museum are still defining what the final lot split will look like for their different projects, but that's being defined. We have some, within the purchase price, there are some requests that there'll be some potential land credits going back towards the Children's Museum to reflect potential expenditures on the site investigation. Other points, they are looking to guarantee a value on their current building, the old facility. So once they transfer over to the new facility, there will be some new tax revenue coming into the district from the old building. And we're coming together on most of the points. So at this point in time, I'd ask if there are any questions in relation to and also would invite Mr. Nick to maybe chime in on any other comments he'd like to make on the MOU, and then see if there are any questions.
Aaron?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Chair Kemp? Could you speak to the timing of when, if this is all on track, when we would expect them to start building the Children's Museum and when it might be open?
That's probably still a little open-ended. They do want to hit certain benchmarks in their fundraising before they would break ground. I think realistically the earliest would be in the fall. It would not be in conjunction with Monarch Ventures, who has a plan to break ground in the spring, assuming we get everything approved in time. So we're probably looking at a later starting point for them. But once they hit certain benchmarks on their fundraising, they'll move forward directly.
I just want to make sure I have that clear. So the two projects, Children's Museum as well as the Monarch Ventures development, the green light on them is entirely independent. So one, Monarch Ventures will start independent of Children's Museum.
Correct. They approached as a joint project, but they are two separate projects, two separate buildings, two separate ownerships. Monarch Ventures has indicated that they will move forward regardless of what happens on the other property. They'll plan their construction accordingly. Obviously, there's some opportunity for them to share some costings in terms of overall site development, leveling lots, bringing in fill, et cetera, which they may be able to take advantage of. But they are operating and moving forward as two separate projects with two separate agreements.
Okay, then follow up on this, is there any concerns? So given that this has historically been treated as sort of one parcel, is there any concerns among staff about various logistics of splitting this site as it would pertain? Specifically, I'm concerned about the TIF increment. I'm specifically concerned about the TIF increment, if there's any concerns there on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So specifically on the TIF increment, your taxable value for TID 8, the North Barstow TID predominantly, is going to be on the Monarch Venture parcel, the one that's shown there in purple. It's private, commercial, and anticipated to be restaurant development, an excellent 3-story project that has already an approved MOU with a slated value of $5 million or more. So we're still working on finalizing the development agreement, as Mr. White indicated, but we hope to have that back to you this spring, and you've got a developer that wants to get in the ground as soon as, weather and, agreement, due diligence on site permits. So that's where your increment is, at least in the North Barstow. As indicated earlier in the presentation for the Children's Museum, we don't determine tax exemption, we being the RDA, that's the city assessor's job, but based on anticipated use, Children's Museum will likely be tax exempt. It's more about a traffic generator, an exciting kind of attraction, additional attraction to what's already a fantastic energized North Barstow district. That's sort of the intrinsic value down there, right? But one of the things that we got direction on, and we have at least tentatively secured through this MOU, is that their existing building, when they would complete this one and shift over, that one would come back onto the tax rolls, and it would obviously have a fair market value, which we think is north of $500,000, but it would at least be guaranteed that there's a $500,000 value in the current building on South Barstow. But the one you're seeing there, and whatever you want to call that, some shade of yellow to tan, that would likely be a tax exempt. So a little bit less than potentially some of the projections, but still a great combined project. Hopefully they both will be built. Both of them want to build side by side, but also, as Mr. White indicated, we anticipate the commercial side of it to start, hopefully within the half year, and that one gives you north of $5 million of increment.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any other discussion on the presentation? Or questions with the presentation? Okay, seeing none, I believe we have a resolution on this item. Is that correct? Sorry to keep you running back and forth there. My scroll wheel on this computer isn't so great. Okay, so resolution, this is a resolution authorizing the redevelopment authority to enter into a memo of understanding, memorandum of understanding, agreement with the Children's Museum of Eau Claire for property located at 126 North Barstow in the North Barstow Street Redevelopment District. Whereas the RDA and developer, the Children's Museum of Eau Claire, have agreed to enter into a memo of understanding agreement for the construction of a museum facility in the North Barstow Street Redevelopment District. Now therefore be it resolved by the Redevelopment Authority of the City of Eau Claire that the President of the Redevelopment Authority is hereby authorized to execute the memo of understanding agreement in substantially the form as attached hereto, and then, and made a part hereof by reference on behalf of the City of Eau Claire Redevelopment Authority, and to take any and all other actions to execute such other real estate transfer documents as may be necessary to effectuate this development project. Look for a motion on the resolution.
So moved.
It's quite a lengthy one.
Yeah.
We need to read it again.
I liked your choice of words.
It's been motioned and second. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor of the resolution?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, very good. That passes then.
I have an agenda for you now. How's that help?
Very good. My scroll finger thanks you. All right, excellent. So item 8 then, review Cannery District Plan marketing material and North Oxford Avenue construction update from engineering. Here, Dave.
Absolutely. So we'll start with the Cannery District. This is the marking piece that we have been working on diligently. Sarah has been working on diligently to put together. We are going to be putting this out to our development list, be posted on our website, and this is the main tool we'll be using to put out Cannery District interest. So just start scrolling through, starts out showing the overall development layout, hits some of the existing structures that are down in the area, and then we show the available parcels that are owned by the RDA or the city, and then it moves into each individual section that was identified in the main plan, identifies what the vision is for that space, shows the artistic rendering that was provided by Vandewall, shows specs of the site, and we can reference which parcels are needed to do each development piece. Going back to the, let's go back to the main map photo. So going back to this map, we are still working with Jason Grippentrog on the Kessler Bowl property, the one to the north, that property there. Actively working on the project to negotiate that space. We now have interest in the development that would go into the Kessler Bowl. So the Kessler Park location. We were approached by a builder here within the last month who has an interest in developing that site. We have two different parties interested in developing what's referred to as the Maple site, who expressed interest in doing the multifamily mixed income type housing there. We've had some interest in the Platt and Oxford site, and that interested party is now shifting over to interest in doing the Riverside site. So we have potentially 4 sites of strong interest to develop these projects out. So, and most of that was coming from just visions of the draft plan that made it into the media as part of our process and presentation, seeing some of those references, the Cannery District, some of the references to the draft map caught their attention, and they approached us specifically about doing different area projects. So I think our approach on putting this out to a broad group of developers and letting them come to us with a proposal is going to work fairly well. So we're very excited about the interest, the projects they're looking to come down there. Very excited about those, lots of potential. Would have any questions of the group in terms of the marketing piece, or any thoughts or comments?
Anybody? Okay, seeing that, I'd like to say a few words about this. So first off, thanks for everybody for all the hard work on this. I've been involved with this group, RDA, on and off since, I think, 2009. We're in 2020 now. We've been working with the Cannery District since around 2010, as I recall. Sound about right, Dale and Steve. So it's been a long process. Yeah, yeah. And it's, first off, it's been through the redevelopment has been through a number of iterations, and each one has been a lot of hard work by with a lot of good folks and a lot of good partners. And it's really nice to see this finally coming to fruition. Seeing a lot of interested parties, really excited to see that area redevelop and really become hit the potential that it has. So I would like to thank everybody for their work on that, sort of their vision in putting this forward, and look forward very much to the next steps. Thanks.
Absolutely. And so at this point, there's no other questions or comments, so I'll turn it over to Mr. Solberg to talk a little bit about the North Oxford street work.
Good morning. I've been here over the last couple of years with just some broad concepts of the First Street access to the Cannery District. We've done the trail that goes from Madison Street up to the High Bridge. We're going to be doing the underpass, or planning the underpass of the Madison Street Bridge this summer for the Cannery Trail. But this is the first transportation connection into the Cannery District that we're proposing and bringing forward. We had talked about a concept of Barstow Street, a Graham Avenue type pedestrian-centric downtown street from Madison Street up to Platt Street, and then something possibly changing it around about at the north, at the intersection of Platt Street, and maybe something more akin to Riverfront Terrace as you go through the rest of the Cannery District. So we are proposing with this first project to start at Madison Street and go to the north end of the Children's Museum, or Children's Theater property, where you see the dark gray in the bottom right side of your corner. That's a tie-in for asphalt. And then we have concepts depending upon the Riverside development just north and east of there, of a roundabout that could be an offset roundabout that would help facilitate development in that area right there. Correct, where the little hand is going. So I guess starting at Madison Street going to the north, our overall goals that we wanted to accomplish were to have wider sidewalks, try to encourage on-street parking wherever possible, to try and help calm traffic, and then have more pedestrian and bicycle-friendly crossings, similar to what you see in downtown on Barstow and Graham and the side streets, to shorten the crossing distance, provide an aesthetic improvement, and then have decorative pavers, decorative lighting that you see downtown. This is the crosswalk at Maxim Street. So instead of, you can see when it shifts out and in, you can see the busted up concrete. We'll have new concrete pavement and then a shorter crossing similar to what you'd see on Main Street across Barstow Street in downtown. The only difference is we're showing pavers in the crosswalks there, and we're proposing stamped and stained concrete like we see on Lake Street with Lake Street's project. But the amount of traffic, it'll be just a little, should be a little more durable than the pavers that we have in there. We've reached out to Vandy Wall with the brick colors, and what we want to do is draw some of the colors in from the Children's Theater and from the Brewing Project. So the brick pattern and the brick colors would have a different feel than we have in Barstow and in South Barstow and North Barstow. But some of the similar concepts with wider sidewalks, safer crossings, decorative lighting, would carry forth into this first gateway route into the Cannery District. We're not looking at, we had talked internally about, Bellinger Street and Oxford Avenue, having one-way pairs, or do you try to really restrict one over the other? Right now it's about a 50-50 split for traffic. We're keeping 2 lanes of traffic open, one in each direction on both routes, so we're not changing the amount of traffic, but we're changing the feel with Oxford. So instead of being a little bit of a stressful, fast route through that area, it'll feel more calm, and hopefully will help facilitate some of the uses of the new apartment building that's being built, and the Children's Theater, the Brewing Project, and future development. Timing-wise, we're working with Xcel Energy. One large goal that we had was to eliminate the aerial electric lines as much as possible. So we are able to have those lines removed aerially once we get north of the Cameron Street right-of-way. Just north of the Quick Trip property, Cameron Street right-of-way remains. Half of that was vacated earlier this year. The south half of that right-of-way remains as right-of-way. So the aerial facilities will come from Madison Street as they do now, past Quick Trip, and then they will go to the west and use an existing pole line that goes up an alley. So a lot of the unsightly aerial intrusions into the corridor will be gone. Our tree wells that we're showing on there, they're called Silvacels, so it actually filters stormwater, so the water from the street will go into engineered soil containers, and basically the trees will filter out the impurities of the surface water before it goes into the Chippewa River. Timing-wise, we're working with Xcel Energy for the utility moves. We're working with Warner Capital for the timing of the project that's under construction currently. Construction could begin as early as late spring, May timeframe, or if there are hiccups with construction on either project or the moving of the utilities, the latest would be right away next spring when the weather permits. So we're carrying the project forward to the city council at the next meetings so we can begin design on it, and then we'll work on the actual timing of construction. That would be the most agreeable and pragmatic with all of the other moving parts that occur with that. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions, Mr. Solberg? Okay, I don't see it.
To the other one with the two on there.
Don't
So
see any
there's a-
questions. I have a brief question. To what degree, or can you speak to the process a little bit about discussions with existing folks in the area on these designs? So Quick Trip, Children's Museum, brewing projects, etc.
A little over a week ago, we held an open house at the Children's Theater. TV13 or TV18 was there. It wasn't overly well attended, but we did have representatives from the brewing project come over, as well as it was held at the Children's Theater. So we talked with Wayne Merrick from the Children's Theater, and also with Warner Capital. We've had discussions yesterday. Had a phone conference with their timing for construction, and they're very supportive of the concepts for this, and that material will be included in the council packet. The timing of it, so the physical, what it will look like 2 years from now is very well received. There's just a lot of moving parts with having Xcel move their utilities, and the businesses are concerned that are open with access during construction, so it's something that we're very familiar with, working with businesses and the impact. There is a neighborhood, this is now part of the Upper West Side Neighborhood Association. There isn't a bid for this area. So I am working with that neighborhood association to get on their agenda for future meetings. I was not able to be on the agenda for last week. They had a pretty full schedule. To get feedback from the outlying neighborhood, this is on the corner of that. It's been through BPAC, and BPAC was supportive of the concepts contained with this. And I also participated with the health. There's a health assessment group for this area that was active up until a couple of years ago, right up until we built the Cannery Trail, and talked about the concepts of shortening the pedestrian crossings and the broader concepts of painting this with that Barstow and Graham Avenue brush seemed to be what people were interested in here as well. So it's been pretty well received. The roundabout that would go in at Platt Street will again be dependent upon what would help create the most developable property along the river, as well as get traffic around that corner. And we'd be looking at a roundabout that would have similar aesthetics, possibly higher aesthetics, the new one we built at Lexington and State Street. That's been very well received by the neighborhood, and try to have something that would be a signature gateway, have landscaping, possibly room for sculpture, just a calming feature that would help, with another entranceway and a gateway into the the newer part of the Canner District. So, if construction starts next spring and we have movement on that development site, then this roundabout would be included with the project next spring, and we would work on developing that. We just didn't want to build something that we weren't sure would be facilitatory with the parcel next to it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think it's that willingness to work with partners and hear other people, as well as all the details that you've discussed in this project, pavers and things like that, that really make or break these things. And so all that extra work is much appreciated. Thank you.
Well, our staff is very excited to try and help improve this part of Eau Claire and keep kind of the momentum going from downtown. So thank you.
It's good work.
Just a statement. I think this is great. And you guys have just done a phenomenal job. I like the idea of that roundabout and then maybe having, like you said, some sort of feature in the middle that just shows like, this is the gateway, you know, this is the cannery, it's a different district. And when you go to other cities and stuff, you'll notice that in their neighborhoods, especially ones that have redeveloped, they're really proud of it and they take pride of it. And those names, knowing, oh yeah, I was up in Cannery, or I was, you know, I just think it's a really cool concept to give, you know, a lot of highlight to that area and what's going to happen to it. It's really amazing. So I just wanted to say thanks to you guys and all your hard work. It's pretty awesome.
Thank you.
I brag about it a lot.
Any other further questions, discussion on the presentation? Okay, thanks. Eric,
Thank you.
Dave, thanks. Executive Director's report, Aaron?
Some of the demolition of the final demolition of the Canner District, the properties that are owned between Platt and Maple will be moving forward, so we're seeing the last of that being cleaned up. Something I kind of wanted to plan as a starter point for the group is to, we'll probably be looking at maybe other areas to start drawing attention to as we're moving forward with some potential development within the Cannery District. We're seeing the last of some of the blight cleaned up that we had ownership of. It's time to start seeing, okay, where's our next potential focus areas? Are there some other properties or areas that should be taking a look at? So we'll probably be leading in some of those discussions later in the year.
That's wonderful and exciting. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Any announcements or correspondence? Mike always used to talk about fan mail at this point, so I don't we get any fan mail. None? Okay. All right, well, I guess I would look for a motion to adjourn then. Okay, moved, second. All right, moved and seconded. All in favor? All right, so moved. We're adjourned 8:14 by my reading. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Cap.
This program was brought to you by a cooperation between Newsworks and the City of Eau Claire. A transcript of this meeting is available for the hearing impaired. It will be available within 7 days of this telecast. Call 715-839-4912 or TDD 715-839-1689. Or write Eau Claire City Clerk, P.O. Box 5148, Eau Claire, Wisconsin 54702-5148. Newsworks is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, please contact us via phone at 715